As you may know, there was recently a pretty substantial overhaul of the state's competitive bid law. That it happened a few years ago, but it just became effective October 1. Well, now this is our turn for local governments for us to update some of those purchasing processes as well, especially in light of some of the inflation and some of the other economic factors that we've experienced in the past few years. So we've drafted a bill to work on the competitive bid law, and we've also worked on one with the Department of Finance for the Public Works Law. So that's something we're very interested in. And we gathered together a group of county employees, emergency managers, engineers, administrators to provide recommendations on what needed to change in these bid laws. So that guided our drafting process for sure. Broadband expansion is another big deal. As you may have heard, Amendment 2 passed this past November to the Alabama Constitution that had to do with broadband expansion. We're very excited about that. Now we have to figure out how can we get broadband access to the communities that need it most, that the local governments identify as areas where there's a lot of need. So we're hoping, ideally, we would like to have some sort of local state match to be able to expand broadband in some of these underserved areas. I don't know how, if y'all are familiar with this, but when the CARES Act happened at the beginning of the pandemic, there was some money available for county governments to get supplies and things like that in response to the pandemic. A lot of that money was taken away from counties at the last minute. They bought things expecting to be reimbursed and then come to find out that no money was available for reimbursement. So our hope is to have the legislature appropriate some of the American Rescue Plan Act money to replace that lost CARES Act money. This one is a little bit ticky-tack. I don't know if you're familiar with the Alabama Administrative Procedure Act. It's a body of law that explains to state agencies how they have to come out with rules, notice and comment, and those types of things. Well, some state agencies have been really utilizing this exception in the Administrative Procedure Act for intergovernmental, interagency, and intra-agency memoranda. And so we're hoping to kind of close that exception a little bit so that rules that state agencies come out with that have an impact on local governments go through the proper public notice and comment periods instead of being a mandate from a state agency that could impact local governments. Pistol permit revenue. As of January 1 of this year, you're no longer required to have a pistol permit in Alabama to be able to conceal carry. This has had a huge impact on county government or on county governments and sheriff's departments who benefited from that revenue. And we've started experiencing revenue loss, not just when it became effective January 1 of this year, but actually when this law passed last spring. People stopped applying for pistol permits because they knew they weren't going to need it next year. So we are, there's already some language in the law that allows for reimbursement for those losses, but we're hoping to improve that so that it actually accounts for the losses that we're experiencing. So this one, oftentimes there will be a county maintained road that goes through a municipality. The Attorney General's office has said that that the municipality is the one that gets to set the speed limits on that road when it goes through the municipal incorporated area. So we hope to have a bill that would make it so that if the county maintains the road, the county's the one that sets the speed limits to try to reduce that liability on the county. Local emergency management, CLEM directors, certified local emergency management directors, they receive a state salary supplement. The way that it's structured right now, that salary supplement hasn't been adjusted for inflation. It has not been updated since 2007. And it also links the funding to some additional federal funding that comes from the state. So we try to clean that up so that all of our emergency managers can get a little boost, and also that it doesn't, counties aren't disincentivized from giving raises because it'll impact other funding that they receive. Election publications are very expensive. They have to be published in a newspaper. This would allow some of those documents to be published on a public website instead of in the newspaper, like the election list. Who actually goes through and sees who's registered to vote in the newspaper? The Board of Registrars are the entity that help register people to vote in the state of Alabama. We're hoping to try to improve that whole process so that it's more representative of the communities that they serve, and also to create additional accountability. These Board of Registrars members are appointed by the state auditor, the Department of the Agriculture and Industries Commissioner, and the governor. And then there's not any sort of there's not a lot of supervision beyond after that appointment occurs, so this would create some additional accountability and some standards, some clear expectations for the job responsibilities of the Board of Registrars. Poll workers are underpaid. We would like the state to give them some more money. So I wanted to give y'all an update on how you can keep up with, my county people in particular, how you can keep up with what's going on in the legislature. Every Monday, we'll send out an email, the Goat Hill Prep, that tells you what's going to happen in the next week, what we anticipate, what you need to call your legislators about. And then every Friday, we have the Goat Hill Glance that explains, well, what just happened this week. In addition to that, we also have Goat Hill alerts that come out as needed. When there's a danger bill, it's on the floor, quick, call. It's in committee, whatever. We need you to call and kill this bill. You'll get an alert about that on your email. We also have this new online community. My county people, raise your hand if you're on the online community. Okay, very good. So it's countyfamily.org. And it's sort of like a social networking site for county officials and employees. And so if you go on to countyfamily.org, and if you don't have an account yet, let me know and we'll help you get one set up. There's a 2023 legislative session tab on the website. There's also different groups. So y'all would go under the county administrative staff group. But if you go to the top, there's that legislative session tab. And there you will find some resources on different bills that are coming up. This is the top of the page with the priority bills. If you were able to scroll down this screen, there's also some information about some of the danger bills, what's going on, how do you communicate that to your legislators. We also have bill tracking. You can find this on our main website, alabamacounties.org, but you can also get directed to it from the online community. So we have bill tracking where you can track our bills, the danger bills, and in addition to that, you can click on your particular affiliate and it will show you the ACCA bills and the danger bills that are relevant just to county administrators. So that would be the ACAA tab.
Well, as you can see, the county commissions, they always come with a big agenda. They do a great job over there representing their members that are in the room and across this state of Alabama. There's a contrast, as I've mentioned before, if you've been in these meetings with us, that the League of Municipalities, we end up playing a lot of defense. We have a lot of authority granted to us already in law, the authority to tax, the authority to set business license rates, the authority to collect. We're one of 3 states that still allow their municipalities and counties to have these luxuries. And so we constantly are defending those rights because we have seen in other states where when it becomes a centralized source of collection, remittance, and administration, it's not as effective, it's not as efficient. even though the business community thinks it's efficient, and it is for them, because there tends to be a lack of accountability. There tends to be a lack of transparency. For those in the room, because I'm an older guy, I remember in 2010 when the economy crashed. How many of you were even in the business world in 2010? Had graduated from high school or college. That's right, Randy and Mike. They remember because they were around. California was in the newspaper several times because they have central collection, central administration, central distribution. And when the economy sank, and at that time, unlike the CARES Act, unlike ARPA, where we had the federal government helping us financially overcome the fears of the impact of that virus, nobody came to help in 2010, 2011, did they, Mayor? Nobody. But in California, because they were a centralized state of collection and remittance, they started sending out IOUs to the cities and counties. They kept the money that they were collecting at a reduced rate for themselves and their needs. And we certainly don't want that to happen in Alabama. We fight feverishly to ensure that you keep your authorities, that you keep your administrative powers, that you are able to keep your revenue streams and administer those revenue streams as you and your citizens deem fit. It's important as you talk to new members of the House and Senate, along with our friends that have been there for a while, to remind them of your governments are the closest to the people. They elected you and your members, your elected body, to administer and protect those city services. And how do we pay for city services? Through tax dollars, through business license collections. That's the only way we can do it, because property prices or taxation is zero for our local governments for the most part. And then when you have one, it's typically dedicated to education, which is a good thing. I'm not knocking that. The point being, though, when you look at these national reports, we're number 2 in the nation for the lowest taxing impact on citizens, behind Tennessee. Now, when you have special interest groups come to the legislature and argue for lowering taxes that they pay at the local level, or the business license that they're paying at the local level, they won't point to that article and say, look, we're the least taxed. What they'll point to is where, well, you know, Florida doesn't do an income tax, or Tennessee doesn't have a sales tax, or this state doesn't do that. But you go back and you show the legislators what Florida and Tennessee and some of these states charge in property taxes, 10 times what we do. You've all heard the stories. You could double our property taxes in Alabama and we'd still be the lowest in the nation. Again, I'm not knocking that. That has helped us tremendously recruit industry to the state of Alabama, which creates jobs, creates wealth, creates opportunities to build communities that are vibrant, that provide the resources you need for your citizens to have a great quality of life. And we want to continue that trend. I say all that because, again, we play defense. We won't have 15 bills at the legislature on offense that we're proposing. What we will do, though, is have 300 bills that we will be engaged on every session where we're trying to defend the local government's rights. And we partner with the counties all the time. It's not to say they don't have any powers. We know they do. But we have a much broader, deeper basket of things that we can do without legislature getting involved. We want to preserve that. So if I can stress anything to you today, I'm passionate about it, and I'll go to preaching, as my board members will tell you. We've got to stay in touch with legislators, because there are about 300 special interest groups every day at the legislature asking individuals to lower their tax liability or lower their business license liability. Over the years, we have been engaged with the pharmacies. We've been engaged with medical equipment providers. We've been engaged with NFIB, retail, serious bills that were introduced that would have cut your revenue streams. It harmed your ability to provide essential services and the quality of life that you want to for your citizens. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Citizens come together, unlike the counties that are in the Constitution and the lines are drawn and put in place. Cities are formed, they're living, breathing communities by citizens who've gotten together with like-minded ideas, like-minded goals and initiatives. And we have 464 municipalities in the state of Alabama, and there's not a one of them, or I guess that's incorrect, there's not two of them that are alike. Fairhope doesn't want to be Birmingham. Birmingham doesn't want to be Huntsville. Huntsville doesn't want to be Ewan. They're all unique in their own ways. They have natural resources, they have unique people, they have unique goals and needs and challenges. And from the League of Municipalities standpoint, our job is not to tell a municipality what they should look like or how they should grow. That's the citizens and the elected officials' job. Our job, our drive, our goals are to make sure you have, though, the resources, the tools, and the opportunities to reach those goals. We created the Economic Development Academy last year. We now have 40 communities that have gone through that annual academy. First group graduated 30 communities. The next group, 10. We pared it down because it's intensive. It's a year-long academic process with a group from each community that sits down and decides, how do we want to grow? What are our challenges and opportunities? And they sit down with experts from all over the state of Alabama, and they help them put together a strategic plan and a laser focus on what is really an accomplishable goal, whether it be in tourism, retail development, economic development. We're looking at it all. We also adopted the Alabama Communities of Excellence, which how many of our communities in the room have been through ACE programs? It's a great program that we believed in, and they were struggling a little bit economically, and we asked them if we could co-parent, if we could help put the resources and the staff time together to grow their ability and their impact, because we really believe in it for smaller communities. We want to be there to help you guys be successful, to reach your goals. We're going out speaking in every county that we can when our mayors and county commissioners, school boards get together, but we're only half of the equation. You're the other half. As elected officials, as appointed positions, you're the other half of the equation. Because more times than not, our advocacy team and myself, which I've advocated on your behalf for 27 years, are asked, how do our folks back home feel about this issue? I haven't heard from my folks back home. We want to make sure that we're in concert. We're supportive of a lot of what the county is working on. We've been working with different groups around on the bid law. We've been working with ARPA appropriations. As you know, the state is sitting on their second tranche, waiting to decide how to expend that for good use of citizens. They gave us a lot of that in the first tranche. And as Lita pointed out, they took away the CARES money, so I think some of them felt guilty, which is why they gave it to us. On top of the fact, if you remember during the first tranche, very narrow definitions of how the funds could be used in the state of Alabama. Broadband, drinking water, wastewater, some lost revenues and that. So the state, because they've done so well economically, they're sitting on these huge surpluses. Money's going into the rainy day fund in numbers like they have never seen before. They wanted to share it. And I think that speaks volumes to the impact that our local governments are having on state policymakers. Because if they didn't trust you, if they didn't value what you do and how you add to the economy, they wouldn't be willing to share those funds. I've been lobbying for 33 years now, and in those 33 years, I don't think we've had a better legislature. They are building accountability and transparency in everything that they're doing when it comes to public funds and public resources. And we're gonna have to accept that, embrace that, within the confounds that we can provide that same type of transparency and accountability to the citizens. We are working, as you saw, there was a report that came out in the omnibus budget bill that was passed that there's some expansion of how ARPA could be used. We're studying that closely, looking at that, trying to get some better information before we come out and provide you a report on suggestions of how you might want to use those funds. Right now, we would just say, keep the funds dry, use them the way you see they need to be used in your community, but these are once in a generation opportunity. I do believe with all my heart, we're gonna see bills introduced that are going to impact your finances. You hear it every day in the press that they're looking to cut taxes. I think they've gotten off the grocery tax, thank goodness. Thank goodness. I think they're, and look, in some of our communities, that's one of the largest revenue streams for that community, is the grocery tax. I do think you better hold on tight and be talking to legislators about protecting online sales tax. There are special interest groups having conversation with legislators that want to go in and amend the current law to take a part of that money. Last year, the state collected $633 million that was shared with cities, counties, the state general fund, and the education trust fund. No one, and Sonny, Lita wasn't there at the time, but Sonny and I worked to get that legislation passed. And to give you just a bit of history, I won't take all day, I promise, but I want to put it in perspective as you talk to legislators that they understand. They would not have adopted this legislation had it not been for the fact that the general fund needed money. The general fund revenues were absolutely flat. They had no new revenue sources. But the legislature saw a way to be able to use these funds captured by online sales taxes as a way to increase the general fund bucket. And it worked. Because again, think about it, this past year, $633 million, take half of that, move it over to the state. So you're talking about 300 million plus, and 75% of that goes into the general fund. And that's been great because it's helped them shore up the essential services they were supposed to be doing as a state. Mental health, Medicaid, all those things that they're supposed to be doing, making sure we're paying state troopers, retirement. You could just go down the list of the things they need to do. But had they not needed that funding, there was no appetite to do that just for local government. Nobody wanted to do a tax increase. And that's the way the citizens viewed it, didn't they? Well, I can go online and buy tax-free. I don't have to go down to Bob's Bike Shop and buy it locally because I can go online and buy it for free and save 8, 9, 10%, whatever that local tax accumulation is. And it really was huge when they were buying refrigerators or a builder was buying a truckload of lumber. And look, the pandemic pushed people even further into using online sales because why? We had a shortage of supplies in stores. We had a shortage of manpower in stores. But if you value, as local representatives, if you value this online sales tax check you're getting every month and how you're able to implement that money in your community without any strings attached, I hope you're talking to your legislators. I hope you're sharing with them what that means to your community, what that money means to the way you're implementing it in your community. Because we're going to have a fight on our hands. We're gonna have education community, courts. You'll have legislators, they'll say, hey, this would be a great opportunity to get a little bit of that money and do my pet projects that I wanna, so you may still get the money, but it's tied to a string that somebody else is deciding how it's gonna be spent. So help us keep that money in good hands. I wanna finish, because I'm not here to share bad news, totally. But it is the legislature, right? Well, you know, as I tell people all the time, when I come to these meetings, it's like a family reunion. I have a blast. I love doing it. This is the best part of my job, is getting out and being with our members and our friends. When I speak to the legislature, I enjoy that too. I really do. But they're like our in-laws, right? You do it, you have a good time, but you're ready to get home. And I love those guys over there. I really do. I have a great deal of respect for them. Because again, if you can only imagine, and I know you get hit with your citizens all the time, when you're in the grocery store, getting your hair cut, the salon, getting a cup of coffee, ball game stuff, you're in your community all the time. Well, they get away from their communities, they come to Montgomery, and they're hit with about 350 special interest lobbyists every day. And as they walk down the hall from their offices, which is about a 300-yard walk to get to the chamber where they're gonna place votes, they're gonna be hit about 75 to 100 times. Hey, can I talk to you? Can I talk to you? Would you support this tax cut? It would really help us spur our business growth. Well, if that's all they hear, they think, well, that must be a good idea. Because I want Mike and his pharmacy to grow. I want him to be successful. I want Bob and his bicycle shop to grow and be successful. They don't think about the flip side of that, that every dollar they take out of your pocket is a dollar you don't get to use to provide essential services in your community. You're not paying firefighters, police officers. You're not maintaining your roads. You're not putting in parks and recreation. You're not developing entertainment networks and attracting retail and restaurants to your community. That's about quality of life. And quality of life is so important today more than ever. How many times do we read in the Wall Street Journal or any other magazine you pick up that graduates are coming out of school today choosing where they want to live based on the quality of life of the community? In my generation, again, I'm 162 years old, you know, we would move back to where our families lived a lot of times. We might. We'd move back to where our friends went. I can remember when I was in my 30s, all the kids coming out of college, I want to go to Atlanta. I want to go to Nashville. Those are happening places. And by, you know, just troves, they're going over there. But today, they're going, you know, with my degree in remote work and technology, I can work almost anywhere. I can be a travel nurse, travel the world, travel the United States. I can be an IT guy or a sales guy. I can work anywhere from my computer as long as that community has a good broadband system. So they're sitting here looking at, where do I want to live? And that is the beauty of Alabama. Because no matter what kind of city or town you want to live in, we can give it to you. It's a great recruiting tool. And we can do it in a very cost-efficient way.